Doubles and coffee. Stuart Richard Young went to meet Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and the U.S. put out a concise statement about the meeting. And Stuart Richard Young is going to talk to the population today. Well, Stuart Richard Young, what we want to hear, don't come with no fluff. Don't come and say, "Oi, me and Muttley give me an award at Gary Sober's thing, and the pictures was nice, and the Trinidad and Tobago flag looked resplendent." That's all very well and good. The key point, the key part of the succinct, short, concise, precise message put out by the State Department of the U.S. is this, and I will read it for you. Secretary Rubio encouraged Prime Minister Young to join the U.S. and other Caribbean democracies in limiting malign influence in the region. Diplomatic language. Secretary Rubio encouraged. What does that mean? It means he tried to impress upon the Honorable Stuart Richard Young that he should join with other democracies in condemning, limiting, reducing the influence of others who would like to exert malign influence. Now, what is malign influence? There are many definitions, but it's very wide. The U.S. would like to limit others and powerful nations like China and Russia from influencing the region that they will control. They believe in democracy as opposed to socialism and so on, their philosophical position. But malign influence in the region deals with especially two specific situations, Cuba and Venezuela. Cuba is a position that we and other Caribbean countries can answer, respond, and so on as our Caribbean brother, as long as we can assure that we are not in breach of any humanitarian principles or treaties that we sign, and that Cuban doctors, coaches, all of the Cuban arts people, all the people who are hired, that they get a fair wage for a fair day's work. That could be debated and discussed. The problem for Trinidad and Tobago is the malign influence of Venezuela, of Maduro, of a narco trafficker, of a 25 million U.S. bounty indicted drug trafficker, money launderer, with Delcy Rodriguez and PDVSA. That is our specific problem with the PNM government and Stuart Richard Young, that they have been promoting, endorsing, supporting, financing the Maduro regime that wants to spread malign influence among the USA, that wants to move away from democratic principles, that wants to promote Russia as a major partner. So Trinidad and Tobago under Stuart Richard Young has been moving, supporting, and propping up the Venezuelan regime. So Marco Rubio tried to encourage Stuart Richard Young to move away from that policy, to move away from the policy of what Trump would do, to move away from the policy of rejecting the Rio Treaty, to move away from the policy of attacking U.S. ambassadors like how he attacked former U.S. Ambassador Mondelo. So Marco Rubio is trying to encourage Stuart Richard Young, Paria, Newman George, and to stop them from trying to support financially, morally, ethically, dancing the Congo line with Maduro. Because in the opinion and research and intelligence of the USA, Maduro is undemocratic. He's a dictator. He has thwarted the rights and responsibilities of a democracy. He has harmed his people. He's breached every principle of natural justice. He has shattered the economy. He is corrupt. Over 8 million Venezuelans have run from Maduro in Venezuela and have gone to other countries or in the region. So Marco Rubio is trying to encourage Stuart Richard Young and the PNM to move away from the foreign policy position that they have espoused over the last 9.5 years. Marco Rubio is trying to encourage Stuart Richard Young to stop traveling 13 times to Venezuela in 1 year to meet face-to-face with Telechea, Delcy Rodriguez, and Maduro. Marco Rubio is trying to encourage Stuart Richard Young to stop taking $1 million US of taxpayers' money of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and paying it to the narco-trafficking regime of Maduro. Stuart Richard Young is being encouraged by Marco Rubio to stop promoting the ideals of Maduro. Stuart Richard Young is being encouraged to join with Guyana and the USA and other Caribbean territories to stand up against the encroachment of Maduro in the Essequibo, Guyana's sovereign land. Stuart Richard Young is being encouraged to respect the law, the international law courts, and instruct and tell and influence Maduro to respect international law and not be a dictator and a bully in the region. Marco Rubio is encouraging the PNM and Stuart Richard Young to change the policy of all the eggs in one basket to put Trinidad and Tobago's energy future in the hands of Maduro, Delcy, Astrubal Chavez, and PDVSA, to move away from that Venezuela cross-border gas, that dragon with a dictator, with an indicted narco-trafficker, with someone who wants to produce and influence, malign influence on the USA. Marco Rubio is encouraging Stuart Richard Young to throw away the PNM foreign policy of 9.5 years and return to sanity, understanding that the U.S. is our Trinidad and Tobago's major partner, major friend, major supporter, major bilateral arrangements, to turn away from Maduro, to turn away from Russia, to turn away from Iran, and to move towards our friend, USA. That is what Marco Rubio is trying to encourage the PNM to do. But we in Trinidad and Tobago know that the PNM, Rowley and Stuart Young, have fought hard and passionately for their Maduro policy, for their Delcy policy, for their Dragon policy. They put all of their energy goals, all of our energy future in that basket. It is very difficult, and they're not humble enough to turn around and say, I was wrong. Rowley cannot say, we were wrong. Stuart Richard Young cannot say, we were wrong. He cannot even say sorry to Imran Khan. So the only thing for Trinidad and Tobago to do is to change foreign policy. And how do we do that? April 28, we vote UNC, because Kamala Persad-Bissessa's energy policy is obliquely opposite to Stuart Young's and Rowley's. Kamala Persad-Bissessa believes that our major trading partners are the USA, the European Union, and so on. She does not believe in the narco-trafficking regime, the undemocratic dictator that is Maduro. She does not want to negotiate with a man who breaches human beings' rights, natural rights and justice. She is for humanity. She is for democracy. She will negotiate when a duly elected government is installed in Venezuela, when Venezuelans can return to their country and feel free from fear, free from oppression, free from being victimized. Kamala Persad-Bissessa will negotiate with a duly elected president, Urrutia in Venezuela, Gonzalez. So the only way for Trinidad and Tobago to be encouraged to reduce malign influence is to change the PNM. The PNM believes in Maduro, believes in Delcy, believes in PDVSA, believes in Wilmer Ruperti, believes in ES Euro shipping. Paria was buying fuel. Sanctioned ships came into Trinidad and Tobago, left and deposited fuel in Palo Alto, Venezuela, 1.2 million barrels in April 2020. That is the policy and position of Stuart Richard Young and Newman George of Paria. This position must be changed. The only way to change it is to reject the PNM, because the PNM cannot turn an about face. They have put too much eggs in that basket. They've been arrogant. They've boasted about Dragon. They've done everything. They even paid money in advance. They went up, they went down. They attacked Trump previous regime. They boasted that they had friends in the Biden regime, that they were moving forward. Even during COVID, they allowed Delcy Rodriguez and PDVSA officials to come into Trinidad and Tobago while citizens couldn't come out. Don't you think the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, knows that? When he says to Stuart Richard Young, Secretary Rubio encouraged Prime Minister Young to join the U.S. and other Caribbean democracies in limiting malign influence in the region. The problem with the PNM and Richard Young and Rowley is that we have become part of that malign influence. So read between the lines of the few words stated by Marco Rubio. So Stuart Richard Young, in your press conference today, please go into detail about how we are going to be a bastion, a light to change direction and move away from those who would like to encourage malign influence against the USA and our #1 trading partner. The USA says they stand for Trinidad and Tobago's energy independence and the future, which means focus on trade with the USA. No Venezuela undemocratic negotiations with a dictator, an oppressor, a narco trafficker, a money launderer, and a man who the U.S. is paying $25 million U.S. for his arrest and detention. Stuart Richard Young, you must come out this afternoon and say, I was wrong. Trinidad and Tobago, I apologize. I put you at risk. I put the citizens at risk. U.S. visas are now harder to get. The costs are going up. Now UK visas. The final part of malign influence deals with gangsters and Tren de Agua. Venezuela, our borders are open. Some of them are here. That's why the crime rate is so out of control. Marco Rubio is encouraging the PNM to reject gangsters, to reject criminals. But that's a difficult one when a member of the government has just been promoted and he had a company with a gangster. He had a company in the UK, signed up to do business with a gangster, and he says, that's no big deal. You think Marco Rubio is not aware of that? You think the Secretary of State of the USA does not have intelligence on that? Stuart Young, over to you, Prime Minister. Let us see you apologize, hit reverse gear, and say, I should have listened to Kamala. I should have listened to David Lee. I should have listened to Wade Mark. I should have listened to Jolene John. I should have listened to the Dogla. I should have listened to the UNC. I should have followed Kevin Ramnaran. I should have done things better. I should have done, Amory Brown should have been told to follow foreign policy that takes us into alignment with the USA, Canada, and the European Union, away from Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. I have failed. I have flopped. I have put my country at risk. And I humbly apologize. It was Rowley's fault. And now, as Prime Minister, I will change the policy. I will move away from Keith Rowley's foreign policy. I will turn about face. I will not go to Venezuela. I will not recognize Maduro's illegitimate regime that did not even produce one statement of poll. I will reject that fraudulent election, and I will move closer to the USA and the principles of democracy to reduce malign influence. Stuart Richard Young, that's what you have to say. Anything else, you're wasting time. And to the population, when he cannot say that, get ready. Vote him out for putting our country at risk with terrible policies, ignorance, and arrogance. Vote UNC, April 28.